The present moment holds every answer. Buddhist wisdom. There is a silent place where life reveals its deepest truths, a space that exists beyond anxiety, beyond fear, beyond the constant pressure of expectations and the never-ending noise of the world. This place is not far away. It is not hidden in the future, nor buried in the past. It lives here, right now, inside the only moment that truly belongs to you. The present moment. Every spiritual tradition, every contemplative path, every teacher who has ever awakened to the nature of reality arrives at the same realization. The answers we chase outside are often already waiting within us, and they become clear the moment we learn to be fully present. The present moment holds every answer, not because it magically solves problems the instant we sit still, but because it strips away the illusions that make our suffering heavier. When we are here, truly here, we stop fighting with what has already happened and stop worrying about what has not yet arrived. We return to the breath, to the body, to the quiet awareness that watches everything without judgment. And in this return, we discover something astonishing. Most of our suffering comes from our refusal to inhabit the moment we are living. Buddhist wisdom teaches that the present moment is not a small sliver between what was and what will be. It is the doorway to clarity, to peace, to understanding, to awakening. It is the space where the mind can see itself without distortion. It is where wisdom rises naturally, without being forced. It is where truth is always available, waiting for us to slow down enough to notice it. In this long and profound journey through 5 deep topics, you will explore how the present moment becomes the greatest teacher you will ever have. You will see why living here and now dissolves illusions, exposes the roots of fear, softens the ego, and reconnects you with the natural rhythm of life. You will learn why the answers you seek outside often remain hidden until you learn to stop, breathe, and return to the moment that is always unfolding. This is not just philosophy, it is a practice, a way of seeing, a change in how you relate to your own existence. We will begin now with the first topic, entering the heart of this teaching with honesty, depth, and a complete openness to transformation. The present moment as your true home. The idea that the present moment is your true home may sound poetic, perhaps even abstract, but within Buddhist wisdom it represents one of the most profound truths about human experience. To live anywhere else, whether anchored in memory or projecting yourself toward imagined futures, is to wander through landscapes that do not truly exist. Yet most people spend the majority of their living hours doing exactly that. They dwell in the past, replaying events that cannot be changed, reliving pains that have already been completed, or holding on to pleasures that time has dissolved. Or they spend their days in anticipation, anxiety, fear, and desire, building a future in the mind that may never unfold as imagined. In this endless oscillation between what has been and what might be, they abandon the only place where life is actually happening. To call the present moment your true home is to recognize that everything real, everything alive, everything that can be touched, felt, shaped, understood, or embraced exists here. This moment is the only space where your breath enters your body, where your senses come alive, where decisions are made, where change is possible. If you abandon it, you abandon your power. If you return to it, you reclaim your life. Yet returning home is not always easy. The mind resists stillness. It resists presence. It has been conditioned for years, often decades, to run, to compare, to anticipate, to defend itself against what it perceives as threats. It has become so used to living in stories that silence feels uncomfortable and unfamiliar. The present moment can seem frightening to a mind that has never learned how to rest in it. This is why Buddhist teachers often say that the first step toward awakening is learning to stop. Stopping does not mean withdrawing from life or refusing to act. Instead, it means pausing the automatic momentum of thought long enough to see clearly. It means noticing where you are, how you feel, what is actually in front of you, and whether your thoughts are aligned with reality or distorted by fear and habit. Without this stopping, there is no returning home. Without returning home, there is no understanding. And without understanding, there is no liberation. To live in the present moment also requires humility. It asks you to stop believing that your mind always knows what is best. It asks you to recognize that life unfolds in ways far more intelligent and interconnected than your fears allow you to perceive. When you become present, you begin to trust again. You begin to feel supported by something greater than thought. You begin to sense that the universe is not against you, that life is not trying to break you, and that suffering often arises not from what happens, but from your struggle against it. The present moment is your true home because it removes the distance between you and life. When you return to it, you return to clarity. You return to the simplicity of breath, to the grounding of your body, to the awareness that is always watching even when the mind is lost. You discover that beneath your thoughts there is a quiet presence that has never been frightened, never been overwhelmed, never been confused. This presence is your real self, the observer behind all experiences, the consciousness that perceives everything without becoming entangled in it. When you rest in this awareness, you understand why the present moment holds every answer. Because it reconnects you to the part of yourself that was always wise. One of the greatest revelations that comes from presence is the recognition that your thoughts do not define you. They arise, they pass, they fluctuate, they contradict themselves. They appear with intensity, then dissolve. They create worlds of fear, then vanish without a trace. To mistake them for your identity is to live as a prisoner. But when you watch your thoughts from the space of presence, you begin to see them for what they are. Temporary formations, clouds passing through the sky of your awareness. Some are useful, some are destructive, but none of them are you. Your true home is not the cloud, it is the sky. This shift in perception transforms your relationship with suffering. Pain may still arise, life will still challenge you, surprise you, shake you, and teach you, but suffering becomes optional. Suffering is the resistance to what is. It is the refusal to inhabit the present moment. When you resist reality, you create tension within yourself. The mind begins to fight, to cling, to react. But when you return to presence, the struggle softens. You begin to accept life as it unfolds, not because you are passive, but because you understand there is wisdom in allowing things to be what they are. Presence teaches you that you cannot control everything, and more importantly, that you do not need to. The need to control is born from fear, and fear is always rooted in the future. It imagines outcomes. It invents threats. It tries to rebuild the world before it even arrives. But when you live in the present, fear loses its foundation. You deal with life moment by moment, challenge by challenge, breath by breath. You stop carrying problems that do not exist yet. You stop fighting battles that are only happening in your imagination. You stop exhausting yourself with stories that never come true. Instead, you face what is real, and reality is always more manageable than the illusions created by fear. The present moment is also your true home because it reveals beauty in ordinary things. When you are present, the world becomes vivid, colors seem brighter, sounds become clearer. Movements slow down enough for you to appreciate them. You notice details that were once invisible. You hear the quiet rustle of leaves, the subtle rhythm of your breath, the texture of light on a wall. This is not imagination. This is life perceived without the distortion of thought. When the mind is still, the senses awaken. This awakening to beauty has profound psychological effects. It reduces stress, softens emotional reactivity, and increases resilience. It reminds you that peace is not an external achievement, but an internal state of alignment. When you are present, you stop rushing through life and start experiencing it. You become grateful for small moments. You begin to feel alive again, and this aliveness dissolves the emptiness that comes from constant striving. To make the present moment your true home, you must practice returning to it again and again, not as a chore, but as an act of love. Every time you catch your mind wandering, judging, criticizing, or anticipating, gently bring it back. Feel your breath. Feel the ground beneath you. Feel the presence behind your thoughts. Do this not to escape your responsibilities, but to meet them from a place of clarity rather than confusion. Over time, this practice becomes natural. Presence becomes your default state. And when it does, you realize that the world has not changed. You have. Your relationships change when you become present. You listen more deeply, without the urgency to respond or defend yourself. You speak more honestly, without the need to impress or manipulate. You understand others more clearly, because your mind is not clouded by projections or fears. You begin to see people as they are, not as your insecurities paint them. Presence dissolves conflict because it removes the ego's need to be right. When you are here, you value peace more than victory. Your relationship with yourself changes as well. Presence reveals the inner critic as just another voice, not a truth. It exposes the unrealistic expectations you place on yourself. It shows you that you do not need to be perfect to be worthy of love, respect, or freedom. You begin to treat yourself with kindness, with patience, with understanding. You stop punishing yourself for the past. You stop fearing the future. You stop running from who you are. Living in the present is an ongoing journey. There is no final destination, no moment of perfection. There is only now, and now, and now again. Each moment offers the chance to return home. Each moment invites you to see clearly. Each moment contains the wisdom you need to take the next step. When you realize that the present moment is your true home, you stop searching for yourself in the wrong places. You stop believing that the world must change for you to be at peace. You understand that peace is born within you the moment you stop wandering and come back to where your life is actually unfolding. The present moment holds every answer because it is the only place where consciousness meets experience. It is the only place where truth can be seen without distortion. It is the only place where life is real. Return to it, rest in it, live in it, let it guide you. And now that you have completed this first deep exploration, I invite you to stay connected on this journey of wisdom and transformation. If this message resonates with you, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss the teachings that help you grow and awaken. The silence within the present moment. There is a kind of silence that is not the absence of sound, but the absence of resistance. It exists beneath the noise of thoughts, beneath the rush of emotions, beneath the stories that the mind constantly tells to protect its fragile identity. This silence is not something you need to create. It is already here, waiting to be noticed. When you stop running from the present moment, when you stop escaping into memories and expectations, this silence rises naturally, like the surface of a lake once the storm has passed. It is the space where everything becomes clear, the stillness where the truth begins to speak. Most people are afraid of silence because it confronts them with themselves. In the stillness of the present, there are no distractions, no entertainment, no illusions to hide behind. The noise of daily life, the endless messages, tasks, and external stimuli acts as a shield, protecting the mind from confronting its own emptiness. But Buddhist wisdom reminds us that what we call emptiness is not a void, it is fullness itself. When the mind grows quiet, when the inner chatter dissolves, what remains is pure awareness, vast and luminous. It is the consciousness that precedes all experience, the witness that observes everything yet remains untouched. Returning to this silence is like returning to the source of life. The silence of the present moment has healing power because it reveals what words cannot. In the noise of thought, truth becomes fragmented. The mind analyzes, compares, judges, and labels, reducing reality to pieces it can understand. But silence is whole. It does not divide. It sees directly. It understands through being, not through thinking. When you are silent inside, you begin to perceive the interconnectedness of all things. You sense that the boundaries separating you from the world are illusions created by the mind. You are not a separate being observing reality. You are reality observing itself through the form of your consciousness. This is the essence of non-duality, the heart of Buddhist teaching. Silence in the present moment is not passive. It is alive, it breathes, it moves. It responds without effort. When you are deeply present, you act with clarity because your actions arise from awareness, not from reaction. The ego reacts. Awareness responds. The ego fears silence because it cannot survive without noise. It feeds on drama, conflict, and thought. But the soul, the true self, thrives in silence because silence is its natural environment. Every spiritual master throughout history has pointed toward this same space of quiet awareness. It is the ground of all being, the canvas upon which existence unfolds. When you enter it, even briefly, you recognize it as home. The practice of silence does not mean rejecting words or isolating yourself from society. It means learning to carry stillness within you, even while speaking, working, or walking through the world. It means listening to the quiet between sounds, to the space between breaths, to the pause between thoughts. When you begin to notice these subtle spaces, you realize that silence has always been present, even when you were unaware of it. It is not something you acquire. It is something you uncover. The great Zen masters often taught through silence. When asked profound questions about life or enlightenment, they sometimes simply raised a finger, smiled, or remained still. Their silence was not ignorance, but wisdom. Words can only point toward truth. Silence reveals it directly. When the student was ready, the teacher's silence became the most eloquent answer possible. In that silence, the mind surrendered, and understanding bloomed like a lotus emerging from still water. To cultivate inner silence, you must first make peace with solitude. The modern world fears being alone because solitude exposes what we try to escape. But solitude is not loneliness. Loneliness is the feeling of being disconnected. Solitude is the recognition of being whole. When you sit quietly with yourself, without reaching for your phone, your computer, or another person's attention, you begin to sense that you are not incomplete. You begin to meet the self beneath the roles and stories. In that meeting, something beautiful happens. The tension between who you think you are and who you truly are begins to dissolve. Many people try to reach this inner silence through external means, retreats, rituals, mantras, or exotic journeys. But the Buddha's message was simple. The silence you seek is already inside you. Meditation is merely a method to rediscover it. When you sit in meditation, you watch the mind wander. You watch thoughts appear and disappear. You watch emotions rise and fade. You do not fight them. You simply observe. Over time, you realize that there is something unchanging behind all this movement. That unchanging awareness is the silence itself. It was never lost. It was simply overshadowed by thought. When you touch this silence, your perception of life transforms. The world does not become different, but your relationship to it does. You begin to move slower, to breathe deeper, to respond with wisdom instead of impulse. You find beauty in simplicity, a cup of tea, the sound of rain, the warmth of sunlight on your skin. You no longer need extraordinary experiences to feel alive because the ordinary becomes sacred. This is the miracle of presence. It turns everyday moments into gateways to enlightenment. In the silence of the present moment, fear begins to lose its power. Fear thrives on imagination. It projects scenarios into the future and traps you in them. But silence pulls you back into the now, where those scenarios do not exist. Fear cannot survive in the present because the present is free of mental stories. When you learn to rest in silence, you see that most fears are nothing more than thoughts that have been believed. You can watch them arise, acknowledge them, and let them pass like clouds. You no longer identify with them. You realize you are the sky, not the storm. This understanding brings a deep sense of freedom. You stop being controlled by your emotions because you see them as temporary visitors. You no longer need to suppress them or chase them away. You simply allow them to come and go within the vast field of awareness. This acceptance transforms pain into understanding and struggle into surrender. The silence of the present does not promise a life without challenges, but it gives you the inner strength to face them without losing peace. One of the most misunderstood aspects of Buddhist teaching is that it does not seek to escape life, but to enter it completely. The silence of the present is not detachment from the world, but full engagement with it, minus the ego's distortions. When you act from silence, your actions are more effective because they are not clouded by confusion or greed. You speak less, but say more. You do less, but accomplish more. This paradox arises because silence aligns you with the natural flow of existence. You no longer swim against the current. You move with it. The mind loves to complicate things, but silence simplifies. It cuts through illusions and reveals what truly matters. It shows you that happiness was never hidden in possessions, achievements, or validation, but in the quiet awareness that experiences them. When you are silent, you realize that peace is not something to reach. It is something to stop abandoning. Every moment you spend resisting reality takes you away from peace. Every moment you rest in silence brings you back to it. Silence also deepens compassion. When you are no longer absorbed by your own mental noise, you can truly listen to others. Most people listen to reply, not to understand, but a silent mind listens with its whole being. It feels the unsaid, senses the energy behind words, and responds with kindness instead of judgment. In that silence, empathy grows naturally because the illusion of separation weakens. You recognize yourself in others and others in yourself. The pain of another becomes your own, not because you carry it, but because you understand it from within. This is the birth of genuine compassion. Buddhist wisdom often uses the image of the moon reflected on water to describe the mind. When the surface of the water is disturbed, the reflection becomes distorted. Only when the water is still can the moon appear clearly. Silence is that stillness. When your mind is quiet, it reflects reality as it is, without distortion. You see truth without effort. You act with wisdom without calculation. You love without fear. This clarity is not something you acquire through learning. It is revealed through silence. Silence in the present moment also changes how you perceive time. When you are fully present, time dissolves. Minutes and hours lose their meaning. There is only now, unfolding endlessly. You are not rushing toward a destination. You are living the eternal unfolding of life itself. In that timeless awareness, anxiety disappears because anxiety depends on the future. Regret disappears because regret depends on the past. What remains is peace, the peace of being where you are meant to be. This experience of timelessness is often described by mystics as a glimpse of eternity. It is not that time stops, but that you step outside of its illusion. You realize that you are not a creature moving through time. Time moves through you. You are the awareness within which all experiences rise and fall. When you live from this understanding, you become untouchable by external chaos. The world may change, but the silence within you remains unshaken. Practicing silence in everyday life requires mindfulness. It is not enough to meditate once a day and then return to unconscious living. True practice means carrying awareness into every action, walking, eating, working, speaking. It means noticing when you are lost in thought and gently returning to the present. Each return is an act of love. Over time, the distance between presence and distraction shortens. Eventually, you find yourself living more in silence than in noise. The shift is subtle but profound. You become calmer, more patient, more alive. The silence of the present also transforms suffering into insight. Pain becomes a teacher instead of an enemy. When you experience loss, disappointment, or betrayal, the ego wants to react, to blame, to escape. But if you remain silent, if you simply sit with the pain without labeling it, something miraculous happens. The pain begins to reveal its message. You realize that every challenge contains a lesson, every heartbreak contains wisdom, every ending contains a beginning. Silence allows you to hear what the noise of resistance hides. This transformation of suffering is central to Buddhism. The Buddha himself discovered enlightenment not by escaping pain, but by understanding it. In silence, he observed the nature of suffering and realized that it was rooted in attachment and ignorance. By seeing clearly, he became free. You can do the same. When you rest in silence, you begin to see the impermanence of all things. You stop clinging to what must change. You stop running from what must be faced. You embrace the flow of life as it is. In that acceptance, suffering ends. There is also a mysterious intelligence in silence. When you quiet the mind, answers begin to arise spontaneously. You might be struggling with a problem for days, and then, while sitting silently or walking in nature, clarity appears effortlessly. This is because silence connects you with the deeper intelligence of life, the same intelligence that makes flowers bloom and galaxies spin. When the mind stops interfering, intuition emerges. You realize that wisdom was never something you had to search for. It was something you had to stop obscuring. Many people fear that living in silence will make them less productive, less ambitious, less driven. But the opposite is true. Silence sharpens focus. It removes unnecessary distractions. It allows creativity to flow naturally. When you act from silence, you act with precision. You no longer waste energy on meaningless pursuits. You do what is necessary, no more, no less. This simplicity leads to mastery. Whether you are an artist, a teacher, or a parent, silence deepens your effectiveness because it aligns your actions with awareness. In relationships, silence becomes a form of love. You learn that not every situation needs to be filled with words, that sometimes the most compassionate response is presence itself. When you sit with someone who is suffering, your quiet attention can be more healing than advice. Silence communicates trust, patience, and understanding. It says, "I am here with you." This kind of silence builds connections that words cannot. It heals wounds that explanations never could. As you live more in the silence of the present, gratitude arises naturally. You begin to see that life is a gift, even with its challenges. Every breath, every sunrise, every encounter becomes sacred. You stop taking things for granted. You stop rushing past miracles. Gratitude is not something you practice. It becomes your natural state when you are present. You no longer need reasons to be thankful. You are thankful simply for being alive. Silence also reveals that you are never alone. When the noise fades, you feel the subtle presence of life all around you, the energy of trees, the rhythm of the earth, the pulse of existence itself. You sense that everything is connected, that nothing is truly separate. This realization fills you with humility and awe. You understand that you are part of something vast and intelligent, something that breathes through you. The boundaries between you and the universe dissolve. What remains is unity. To live in the silence of the present moment is to live in truth. It means no longer pretending, no longer performing, no longer seeking validation. It means being authentic, honest, real. You stop chasing perfection because you realize you are already complete. You stop fearing judgment because you see that everyone is struggling in their own way. You stop clinging to control because you trust the flow of life. This is liberation, not a mystical event, but a simple return to what you already are. Each time you return to silence, you dissolve a layer of illusion. You see more clearly, love more deeply, and suffer less. The journey is endless, but every step brings you closer to peace. Eventually, you realize that silence was never something to find. It was who you have always been. Now, as you reach the end of this exploration, take a moment to breathe deeply. Feel the stillness behind the words, the quiet awareness that has been reading these lines through your eyes. That awareness is the true listener, the true self. It is eternal, unchanging, and free. It is the silence of the present moment, the essence of Buddhist wisdom, the answer to every question. And if these words have touched something inside you, if they reminded you of the peace that is always available within, remember that this journey does not end here. Continue walking with awareness, continue listening to the silence, and let it guide you. And before you go, I invite you to subscribe to the channel so that together we can keep exploring the timeless wisdom that helps you return again and again to the present moment where every answer already lives. Awakening to what is. To awaken to the present moment is not to learn something new, but to remember what has always been true. From the first breath you took, existence has unfolded only in the now. Every joy, every sorrow, every insight, every heartbeat has happened here. Yet somewhere along the way, the mind began to wander away from this living moment, chasing images of the past and fantasies of the future. The awakening the Buddha spoke of is a return, a coming back home to what is, to reality as it is unfolding before your eyes. This awakening is simple, but it is not easy, because simplicity terrifies the mind that survives on complexity. When you awaken to what is, you stop demanding that life be different. You stop arguing with the flow of existence. You start to see that the need to control is the root of suffering. Every moment you resist reality, you divide yourself. There is what is happening, and there is what you think should be happening. Between the two lies the tension of human pain. To awaken means to end that division, to let go of the argument, and to meet life exactly as it presents itself. This does not mean resignation. It means recognition. It means saying yes to reality, not because you approve of everything, but because you understand that refusing it only deepens confusion. In Buddhist wisdom, the present moment is sometimes called suchness, the pure isness of life. It cannot be described, only experienced. You cannot grasp it with thought, because thought always stands outside of it, naming, comparing, interpreting. To awaken to suchness is to drop the interpreter. The bird sings, you hear it. The breeze touches your skin, you feel it. No commentary is needed. The experience is complete. In this purity of perception, suffering vanishes, for suffering is born in commentary. The mind says, this should not be happening, and instantly the peace of suchness is lost. When you stop saying no to life, peace returns, not as an idea, but as your natural state. This awakening begins in small moments. Perhaps you are washing dishes, and for the first time you notice the warm water on your hands, the light reflecting on the soap bubbles, the rhythm of your breath. For a few seconds, you are fully here. You are not thinking of tomorrow's plans or yesterday's regrets. You are simply present. In that instant, awareness expands. You realize that life has always been offering itself to you in this way, but you were too distracted to see it. The miracle was never hidden. Your attention was. Awakening also requires courage. The present moment reveals everything you have tried to avoid. It shows you your fears, attachments, and illusions. Many people prefer the comfort of distraction because it keeps them from meeting their own truth. But if you truly want freedom, you must be willing to face yourself without judgment. Sit quietly, breathe, and observe what arises. Watch the discomfort instead of running from it. The pain you feel is not punishment. It is purification. It is the burning away of falsehood. The fire of awareness consumes everything that is not real, leaving only the clear light of presence. In that clarity, you begin to see the patterns of the mind, the endless striving, the constant labeling, the habit of turning life into a problem to be solved. You see how often you postpone happiness, telling yourself that peace will come when things finally go your way. You realize that this promise is an illusion. There is no future moment when everything will be perfect. There is only this moment, and it is already complete. When you awaken to this truth, an immense relief arises. You stop waiting for life to begin. You see that it has been happening all along. Awakening to what is also dissolves the illusion of identity. Most people live as though they were a fixed self moving through time, a character in a story that must be defended. But the present moment reveals that the self is fluid, ever-changing, a collection of sensations, thoughts, and memories arising and fading in awareness. When you look for a permanent self, you cannot find one. There are feelings, perceptions, intentions, but no solid core behind them. At first, this discovery can feel unsettling, but soon it becomes liberating. If there is no fixed self, then there is no one to protect, no one to prove, no one to fear. You are life itself, dancing in infinite forms. The mind resists this understanding because its existence depends on separation. It says, "I am here." The world is there, creating an artificial boundary that breeds fear and desire. But when you are fully present, the boundary dissolves. You feel the continuity between yourself and everything around you, the air entering your lungs, the ground supporting your body, the sunlight warming your face. You see that you are not in the universe. You are the universe, aware of itself through the miracle of consciousness. This recognition is awakening. It cannot be achieved through thinking, only through direct experience. In this awakened state, even ordinary actions become sacred. Drinking tea, walking, listening, breathing, all are expressions of the same awareness. You no longer seek meaning because meaning overflows from the act of being itself. The smallest gesture, when done with full presence, carries the weight of eternity. Time slows down. Life becomes luminous. Nothing is missing because nothing can be missing from the present. Yet awakening does not mean detachment from human feeling. It does not turn you into a cold observer. On the contrary, it deepens sensitivity. When you are fully awake, you feel more, not less. You weep more easily, laugh more freely, love more deeply, but you are no longer enslaved by emotion. Feelings arise and pass within the vastness of awareness, and you remain at peace. Compassion becomes natural because you see yourself in all beings. Their suffering is not separate from yours. Out of this recognition grows genuine kindness, not as a moral duty, but as the spontaneous expression of understanding. Awakening also reveals the impermanence of all things. Every form, every experience, every relationship arises, changes, and fades. The mind tries to hold on, fearing loss, but awareness knows that nothing is ever truly lost. It simply transforms. You begin to flow with life, instead of resisting its movement. When something ends, you bow to it with gratitude and allow space for the next beginning. In this acceptance, grief softens and peace takes root. You understand that death itself is not the enemy, but a natural rhythm of existence. The flower withers, but the essence that allowed it to bloom remains. The practice of awakening to what is requires patience. The mind will not surrender easily. It will keep pulling you into stories of what was and what might be. You will fall asleep to the present thousands of times, and you will wake up thousands of times again. Each awakening, no matter how small, matters. Each time you notice that you have drifted into thought and gently return to the now, you strengthen the muscle of awareness. Over time, the gaps between wakefulness and forgetfulness shorten until presence becomes your resting state. It is important to remember that awakening is not an achievement. You cannot force it, earn it, or claim it as a possession. The very idea of "I will awaken" is another trick of the ego, turning enlightenment into a future goal. But awakening happens only now, when the seeker disappears and only seeing remains. The effort that truly matters is the effort to stop striving. When the mind grows still, awakening reveals itself naturally, like the morning sun emerging from behind clouds. In this openness, life begins to guide you. You no longer rely solely on logic or desire. You sense an inner intelligence directing you toward what is needed. Decisions arise spontaneously from clarity rather than confusion. You act without hesitation because there is no longer a conflict between thought and reality. This is not recklessness. It is alignment. The river does not plan its course, yet it reaches the ocean. In the same way, when you live in awareness, your actions flow effortlessly toward harmony. Awakening to what is also means awakening to the mystery. The present moment cannot be fully understood. It can only be lived. The more you surrender to it, the more wondrous it becomes. The mind wants answers, but awareness delights in the unknown. You realize that not knowing is not ignorance. It is freedom. It allows life to surprise you. It keeps your heart open. The more you rest in mystery, the lighter you become. You stop clinging to beliefs and identities. You start to live with curiosity, humility, and awe. This awakened way of living does not remove challenges, but it transforms how you face them. Pain still visits, loss still happens, but the suffering that once accompanied them diminishes because resistance fades. You see obstacles as part of the path, not as detours. You begin to trust that everything, even what seems painful, serves your growth. The universe stops being an enemy and becomes a teacher. Every situation, every person, every moment offers you an opportunity to awaken further. The beauty of awakening is that it is contagious. When you live with awareness, your presence affects others. People feel calmer around you without knowing why. Your silence becomes a mirror in which they can see themselves more clearly. You teach not through words, but through being. This is why the most enlightened masters often say very little. Their presence communicates what language cannot. In their stillness, others remember their own stillness. This silent transmission is the essence of true teaching. As awakening deepens, the line between meditation and life disappears. You no longer meditate only on the cushion. You meditate while walking, eating, listening. Every act becomes a prayer. Every breath a reminder of the sacredness of existence. The ordinary world does not vanish. It becomes extraordinary. The same street, the same sky, the same people now shine with a light you had never seen before. You realize that enlightenment was never elsewhere. It was hidden in plain sight, waiting for you to open your eyes. To live awakened is to stop postponing joy. You no longer say, "I will be happy when..." You understand that happiness does not come from circumstances, but from alignment with the present. Gratitude becomes your natural language. You find peace not because life is perfect, but because you have stopped demanding that it be. The mind still speaks, but you no longer believe everything it says. You listen with gentleness. Knowing that thoughts are only ripples on the surface of a vast, silent ocean, the awakened state is fragile at first. It comes and goes, like sunlight passing through clouds. Some days you will feel fully alive, and others you will be caught again in the old patterns of worry and desire. Do not be discouraged. The return to unconsciousness is part of the path. Each time you realize you have drifted, you awaken again. The key is not perfection, but persistence. Awareness, once tasted, never disappears completely. It leaves a fragrance in your life that draws you back again and again to the truth of now. Eventually, awakening becomes less about experience and more about being. You stop seeking mystical moments and instead live quietly, peacefully, simply. You do what needs to be done without drama. You speak truthfully, listen deeply, love freely. You no longer need to announce your spirituality. You embody it. Life becomes meditation in motion. Every gesture, every breath, every encounter expresses the same consciousness that once seemed hidden. To awaken to what it means to bow before the mystery of existence and say yes. It means trusting the unfolding even when you do not understand it. It means loving life as it is, with its beauty and its pain, its order and its chaos. It means seeing through the illusions of control and resting in the peace of surrender. When you live this way, fear loses its hold because you know that whatever happens, you will meet it with awareness. And awareness is invincible. Now, let the words fall away. Breathe. Feel the space around you, the rhythm of your heart, the sensation of being alive. This moment, no matter where you are or what you're facing, is enough. It contains everything you need to see, everything you need to learn, everything you need to become. There is nothing outside of it. The present is not just a point in time, it is the infinite field of being in which all things arise. To awaken is to realize that you were never separate from it. You were always home. If this truth resonates in you, if it stirs even a small remembrance of the peace you once knew as a child before the world taught you to be afraid, hold on to that feeling and nurture it. Let it grow each day through stillness, awareness, and compassion. The more you honor it, the more it will guide your life toward harmony. And if you wish to continue walking this path of Buddhist wisdom, to keep exploring the teachings that bring you closer to peace, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Together, we will keep returning again and again to the only place where awakening is possible, the living presence of now. Letting go of control and finding freedom in the present moment. The human mind has been trained since birth to control, to predict, to manipulate outcomes, to believe that safety is found in mastery over circumstances. From a young age, you are taught to plan for the future, to avoid mistakes, to protect yourself from disappointment. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, this training becomes a prison. The mind that believes it must control everything lives in a state of constant tension. It anticipates failure, fears loss, doubts itself, and imagines dangers that never arrive. In its desperate attempt to control life, it loses the ability to live it. Letting go of control is one of the most challenging and transformative lessons of Buddhist wisdom. It requires you to surrender the illusion that you can command the flow of existence and instead learn to move with it, like a river that no longer fights the current. When you truly observe life, you see that control has always been an illusion. You cannot control the rising of the sun, the beating of your heart, or the timing of your next breath. You cannot control what others think or how the future will unfold. Yet the mind clings to the idea that if it plans enough, works enough, worries enough, it will finally secure stability. But what it calls stability is just another name for fear disguised as order. Control is the mind's response to insecurity, a shield it builds to protect itself from uncertainty. The irony is that the more you try to control, the more uncertain you feel, because deep down you know that control is fragile, temporary, and impossible to maintain. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from attachment, and control is the ultimate attachment, the attachment to how things should be. The mind divides reality into categories: what it wants, what it rejects, what it fears, what it desires. It lives in constant comparison between what is and what should be. When reality does not obey its design, it feels betrayed. But life was never meant to obey the mind. It follows a deeper intelligence, one that is beyond human comprehension. To live in peace, you must shift from controlling life to cooperating with it. You must learn to trust the unfolding. Letting go of control does not mean becoming passive or careless. It means releasing resistance. It means acknowledging that life's flow is wiser than your plans. It means acting with clarity when action is needed and resting when it is not. It means surrendering the need to dictate outcomes and instead meeting each moment as it comes. This surrender is not weakness. It is profound strength. It takes great courage to stop fighting with reality, to admit that you do not know, and to live with openness rather than fear. The moment you release the burden of control, you begin to feel lighter. The tension in your body softens, the noise in your mind quiets, and something new begins to emerge. Trust. Trust in yourself, in life, in the natural order that moves the universe. This trust is not blind faith. It is the recognition that existence has sustained you from the beginning without your conscious effort. You did not create your heartbeat or design the stars. The same intelligence that orchestrates the galaxies orchestrates your life. When you stop interfering with it, you begin to flow with grace. One of the most profound realizations of spiritual awakening is that freedom does not come from control, but from surrender. When you let go, you become spacious, flexible, open. The mind that once tried to predict and manipulate everything begins to rest. It no longer needs to know what will happen next because it trusts that whatever comes will be met with awareness. In this openness, you discover a deeper kind of intelligence, intuition. Intuition is not logical prediction, it is direct knowing. It arises from silence, not analysis. You begin to make decisions not from fear of failure, but from alignment with the present. The more you trust this inner guidance, the more life begins to flow effortlessly. The attempt to control is rooted in fear, the fear of uncertainty, the fear of pain, the fear of loss. But uncertainty is not the enemy, it is the nature of life. Everything changes. Everything moves, everything dies and is reborn. Trying to resist change is like trying to stop the tide with your hands. You may delay it for a moment, but eventually the wave will rise again. Letting go means recognizing that uncertainty is not chaos, but creativity. It is the space through which life expresses itself. Without uncertainty, there would be no growth, no discovery, no transformation. The paradox is that when you stop trying to control, life begins to support you in ways you could never plan. Opportunities appear unexpectedly, solutions arise naturally, relationships deepen, and creativity flourishes. This is not magic, it is the natural outcome of alignment. When you stop fighting the flow, you stop blocking the intelligence that guides it. The universe does not need your control, it needs your cooperation. When you cooperate, everything begins to move with ease. Letting go of control also means letting go of the stories you tell yourself about how things should be. The mind loves to create narratives. I must succeed, I must be loved, I must not fail, things must go according to plan. And these stories create tension because they depend on external outcomes that you cannot guarantee. But when you drop the stories, you become free to respond to life as it is. You begin to see that life was never personal. It does not conspire against you or in your favor. It simply unfolds according to its nature. When you stop taking things personally, you stop suffering unnecessarily. One of the most powerful practices to release control is to observe your breath. Breathing happens without your effort. You can influence it, but you do not create it. The breath reminds you that life moves through you, not because of you. When you feel overwhelmed, anxious, or desperate to control a situation, return to the breath. Feel its rhythm. Notice how it enters and leaves the body on its own. This simple awareness brings you back to the present moment, where control dissolves and peace returns. As you deepen in awareness, you begin to see that every attempt to control others is a reflection of your inability to control yourself. When you are at peace within, you no longer need to manipulate anyone else's behavior. You allow people to be as they are because you are comfortable being as you are. This acceptance transforms relationships. Instead of trying to fix or change others, you begin to understand them. You listen without judgment. You speak without aggression. You love without attachment. Control breaks connection. Surrender deepens it. Many people fear that if they let go of control, everything will fall apart. But in truth, what falls apart are only the illusions that never belong to you. When the false collapses, the real remains. Your life does not dissolve. It becomes more authentic. You begin to live according to your true rhythm, rather than the expectations of others. You stop pretending to be in charge and start participating in the dance of existence. The practice of letting go must also include forgiveness. As long as you cling to resentment, you remain a prisoner of the past. Forgiveness is not approval of what happened. It is freedom from the burden of carrying it. The moment you forgive, you stop trying to rewrite history. You accept that the past cannot be changed, only understood. This understanding is liberation. The mind that forgives is the mind that no longer needs to control justice, revenge, or outcome. It trusts that the balance of life is greater than its own. To truly let go, you must also release the need to control how others see you. The desire to be understood, admired, or validated is another form of bondage. It ties your peace to the shifting opinions of others. But opinions are projections. They belong to those who hold them. The moment you stop chasing approval, you reclaim your power. You begin to live authentically, guided by inner truth rather than outer applause. This authenticity brings a quiet joy that no praise can match. In Buddhism, this surrender is called non-attachment. It does not mean indifference, but clarity. When you are non-attached, you engage fully with life while knowing that nothing is permanent. You love deeply, but do not cling. You work diligently, but do not depend on results. You experience pleasure, but do not chase it. You feel pain, but do not become it. Non-attachment is the art of freedom within participation. It allows you to live fully without losing yourself in the waves of impermanence. Letting go also requires trust in the law of cause and effect. Every action has consequences, and the universe unfolds according to this natural law. You do not need to control outcomes because they arise naturally from causes. Your responsibility is only to act with awareness, integrity, and compassion. The rest is not in your hands. When you act wisely, you plant good seeds. Whether they bloom tomorrow or years from now is not your concern. The gardener does not pull at the flower to make it grow faster. He waters it and waits. When you stop trying to control the flow of life, creativity awakens. Inspiration arises when the mind is open, not when it is tense. The artist, the writer, the teacher, the healer, all create best when they are surrendered to the process. In surrender, the ego steps aside and something greater flows through. The same is true for all of life. When you release the grip of control, the intelligence of existence begins to move through you. You become an instrument rather than an obstacle. The freedom that comes from letting go is not theoretical, it is deeply felt. You wake up in the morning with a lighter heart. You stop dreading the future because you no longer expect it to fulfill you. You find beauty in what is already here. You become grateful not only for what goes well, but also for what challenges you. Every experience becomes an opportunity to practice presence. You realize that peace was never a reward for getting life right. It was the result of no longer needing to. Even death, the greatest uncertainty, loses its terror in the light of surrender. When you truly see that you never controlled your birth, your breath, or your body, you begin to understand that death is not the end, but a transformation. Life and death are part of the same movement, like inhalation and exhalation. The fear of death is the fear of losing control. When you let go, you die before you die, meaning that you experience the freedom of living without fear. You discover that what you are cannot die, because awareness is eternal. The journey of letting go is not linear. Some days you will feel free. Others you will fall back into old patterns of worry. Do not judge this fluctuation. Every time you notice that you are trying to control again and choose instead to release, you grow stronger in awareness. The mind may resist, but the heart knows the way. Keep returning to the breath, to the body, to the now. Each return is a victory. Eventually, letting go becomes effortless. You realize there was never anything to hold on to. The hands that once clutched at life open naturally. In that openness, love flows more freely, joy arises spontaneously, and peace becomes your resting state. You stop fighting with the wind and start moving with it. You become like a tree that bends in the storm but does not break, because its roots are deep in the soil of trust. When you live this way, you inspire others. People around you notice your calm, your resilience, your quiet confidence. They sense that you are no longer enslaved by fear or control. You become a reminder that it is possible to live differently, to live lightly. Your presence becomes a teaching without words. Letting go of control and finding freedom in the present moment is not a single act. It is a lifelong practice. It is the daily decision to release the illusion of mastery and embrace the mystery of being. It is the art of saying yes to what is and trusting that what comes next will also be enough. It is the understanding that life is not happening to you, but through you. As you read these words, pause, breathe, feel the movement of air in your lungs, the pulse in your hands, the silence behind your thoughts. That silence is the space where freedom begins. Everything you've been searching for, peace, clarity, love, exists in that space. You do not need to control it. You only need to notice it. The present moment is already whole. If this truth resonates with you, if it reminds you of something you have always known but forgotten, hold on to that remembrance. Let it guide you through every uncertainty, every fear, every loss. The path of surrender is not for the faint-hearted, but it leads to a freedom that cannot be shaken. And as you continue this journey, stay close to the wisdom that keeps you anchored in presence. Subscribe to the channel and let us keep walking together in awareness, trust, and the gentle unfolding of now. The peace that arises when you fully accept the present moment. There comes a point in every human journey when the endless search for improvement, control, and certainty begins to exhaust the soul. The striving, the planning, the analyzing, all of it starts to feel heavy, like dragging the weight of the world on your shoulders. You reach that moment and realize something profound. Peace has never been lost. It has only been postponed. It has been waiting behind the noise of resistance, behind the arguments with life, behind the belief that things should be different. The present moment is not a prison to escape. It is the field of freedom where all things unfold. The moment you stop fighting with reality, peace arises, not as a reward, but as the natural fragrance of acceptance. Acceptance is not submission, and it is not indifference. It is the clear recognition that life is happening as it is, not as you imagine it should be. When you stop demanding that reality fit your desires, a spaciousness opens within you. That space is peace. It is not a feeling you chase, but a presence you uncover. The more you practice acceptance, the more you realize that peace was never something to attain. It was hidden beneath every moment of resistance you carried. The mind constantly says, "This should not be happening," and every time you believe it, you suffer. The truth is simpler. This is happening. Whether you like it or not, it is what is. The choice is not between what happens and what does not. The choice is between resistance and acceptance. To accept the present moment does not mean that you never act to change circumstances. It means that your actions come from clarity instead of conflict. When you resist, your actions are clouded by fear, anger, and confusion. When you accept, you see clearly what needs to be done, and you act without inner turbulence. Acceptance gives you the strength to move wisely rather than impulsively. It is the difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is born of fear. Response is born of awareness. The one who accepts reality becomes infinitely more powerful than the one who denies it. Peace through acceptance begins when you stop confusing your thoughts about life with life itself. Reality is not what you think. It is what is happening before thinking. When you look at a flower, there is a split second before the mind says, "Flower." In that gap, you experience pure seeing, untouched by judgment or comparison. That moment is freedom. But almost instantly, the mind interferes. It labels, it judges, it recalls memories and expectations. It overlays 1,000 opinions on the simple fact of being. To live in acceptance is to widen that gap, to stay longer in the silence before thought, to meet life without commentary. In that direct seeing, peace arises naturally, like the dawn breaking after a long night. The mind believes that resistance protects you. It thinks that by worrying, judging, or rejecting, it can avoid pain. But in truth, resistance multiplies pain. Whatever you resist persists, not because the universe punishes you, but because attention energizes what it fears. When you fight reality, you feed it. When you accept it, it begins to lose its grip. Imagine holding a rope in a tug-of-war with life. Every pull of resistance tightens the rope, making the struggle harder. When you let go, life does not drag you. It simply flows. Acceptance is that letting go. Many people misunderstand acceptance as weakness. They think it means giving up. But the opposite is true. It takes enormous courage to accept what is. It takes strength to look at pain, loss, or uncertainty and say, "Yes, this too." Acceptance does not erase challenges. It transforms your relationship with them. Instead of being crushed by what happens, you begin to learn from it. You begin to see that every event carries a lesson, that every difficulty is a teacher in disguise. Life is not against you, it is guiding you, but you can only see its guidance when you stop fighting with it. Peace through acceptance also means making peace with imperfection. The mind constantly chases ideals, perfect circumstances, perfect people, perfect versions of yourself. But perfection does not exist in time. The moment you achieve one goal, another appears. You reach the top of one mountain and see 10 more. The search for perfection is the source of endless dissatisfaction. Acceptance means realizing that life is already whole, even with its flaws. You are already enough, even with your mistakes. The universe is complete, even with its chaos. When you stop demanding perfection, you discover beauty in what is. The cracks, the scars, the uncertainties, they are part of the design. The Japanese call this wabi-sabi, the art of finding beauty in imperfection. Buddhism teaches the same truth. The lotus blooms from the mud, not despite it. To fully accept the present moment, you must also release your attachment to time. Most suffering comes from living in the psychological time of the mind, what was and what might be. You replay the past, analyzing every word, regretting every choice, or you project yourself into the future, imagining every possible failure or success. But the present moment knows nothing of these illusions. It is fresh, alive, unburdened. When you enter it fully, time dissolves. You realize that now is eternal. Every breath, every heartbeat, every sound unfolds in this infinite now. Acceptance is not something you practice tomorrow. It can only happen here. As you grow in awareness, you begin to notice how subtle resistance can be. It hides in small complaints, in inner commentary, in the tone of impatience when things move slower than you wish. It hides in the need to fix others, in the craving for recognition, in the quiet whisper that says, "This should not be this way." To live in peace, you must become intimate with your resistance. Notice it without judgment. Feel its tension in the body, the tightening of the chest, the restlessness of thought. When you notice it, do not try to suppress it. That is another form of control. Instead, breathe into it. Watch it. Awareness itself begins to dissolve it. Resistance cannot survive the light of attention. Peace also arises when you accept your emotions instead of fighting them. Anger, sadness, fear. They are not enemies. They are messengers calling you to awareness. When you suppress emotions, they grow stronger. When you accept them, they transform. Sit quietly with your feelings. Do not label them as good or bad. Let them move through you like wind through leaves. You will see that beneath every emotion lies pure energy, neither positive nor negative. When you stop resisting, that energy becomes wisdom. Anger reveals your boundaries. Sadness shows your capacity to love. Fear teaches humility. Acceptance turns emotion into insight. One of the greatest barriers to peace is the ego's need to control the narrative of life. It constantly rewrites the story, trying to make sense of everything, but the story is never the truth, it is only interpretation. Life does not need your commentary, it simply is. When you drop the story, the rawness of being shines through. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start seeing, "This is what is happening." That small shift opens the door to peace. You stop being the victim of circumstances and become the witness of existence. The witness is free. Acceptance does not mean you never feel pain. Pain is inevitable in human life. But suffering, the mental resistance to pain, is optional. Pain says, "Something hurts." Suffering says, "This should not hurt." When you accept pain as part of the human experience, it becomes bearable, even meaningful. You see that every experience, pleasant or unpleasant, contributes to awakening. Nothing is wasted. Every tear, every joy, every silence is part of the path. When you accept everything, you reject nothing, and life becomes whole. Peace is not something you must create. It is what remains when resistance falls away. When the mind stops fighting with life, a natural harmony appears. It has always been there, like the sky behind the clouds. The clouds of judgment, fear, and desire may obscure it, but the sky is unchanged. Your task is not to fix the weather of the mind, but to remember the vastness of the sky. The more you rest in that vastness, the more peace becomes your natural state. To live in acceptance is to live in humility. You admit that you do not control life's unfolding. You realize that you are part of something vast and mysterious, something that moves through galaxies and grains of sand alike. Humility does not belittle you. It frees you from the burden of being the center of the universe. It allows you to marvel instead of demand, to wonder instead of worry. In humility, gratitude grows naturally. You begin to appreciate the simple miracle of being alive, of breathing, of seeing, of feeling. Gratitude and acceptance are twins. Where one lives, the other blooms. Another dimension of acceptance is learning to accept others as they are. Most conflicts arise from the expectation that people should behave according to your preferences. But every person is shaped by their own journey, their own fears and lessons. When you understand this, compassion replaces judgment. You stop trying to change others and begin to see the shared humanity beneath their behavior. This does not mean tolerating harm. It means acting from understanding rather than hatred. Acceptance of others does not weaken boundaries. It strengthens them because it is rooted in clarity, not resentment. Accepting others also teaches you to accept yourself. The way you judge others mirrors how you judge yourself. When you stop condemning others for their mistakes, you stop punishing yourself for yours. You realize that you too are a work in progress, learning through trial and error. Self-acceptance is not complacency, it is honesty. It is the recognition that growth happens through awareness, not through shame. The moment you forgive yourself, a great weight lifts. You become your own ally instead of your own enemy. That inner reconciliation is the beginning of peace. Acceptance also transforms how you experience success and failure. When you are attached to outcomes, life becomes a constant roller coaster of highs and lows. But when you accept that both success and failure are temporary, you find balance. You celebrate success without arrogance, and you face failure without despair. You realize that both are teachers. Success shows you the power of alignment. Failure shows you the limits of control. In acceptance, both lose their hold. You remain steady, peaceful, free. The practice of acceptance must be renewed every day. Life will continue to test your patience, challenge your beliefs, and stretch your heart. Each challenge is an invitation to deepen your trust. Every time you resist, you have the chance to remember. Every time you accept, peace grows stronger within you. Over time, acceptance becomes effortless. It is no longer something you do, it becomes who you are. You meet each moment with openness, without the armor of expectation. You live lightly, as if dancing with existence instead of wrestling with it. When you live this way, even ordinary moments become sacred. You see the miracle in the mundane, the way sunlight filters through a window, the sound of laughter in another room, the quiet rhythm of your own breathing. You no longer need grand experiences to feel alive. Aliveness itself is enough. The present moment becomes your temple, your sanctuary, your teacher. It holds everything you once searched for in distant dreams. Eventually, you realize that acceptance is love. To accept life as it is, without conditions, is to love it unconditionally. Love is not limited to people or moments of pleasure. It is the deep embrace of existence itself. When you live in this love, peace is not something you seek. It is the way you see. The world may remain chaotic, but within you there is stillness. Storms may come, but you no longer fear them, for you have found the calm at the center of the storm. Now, take a breath. Feel the air entering your lungs, the life moving through you. This is peace. Not tomorrow, not when everything goes right, but now, in this imperfect, sacred, ever-changing moment. The peace you seek is not hidden in the distance. It has always been here, waiting for your acceptance. If these words have resonated with you, if they have reminded you of the quiet truth that lives beneath all struggle, then stay close to this awareness. Keep returning to the present moment. Let it teach you, hold you, transform you. And if you wish to continue this path of understanding and peace, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, so together we may keep exploring the timeless wisdom that leads back always to the stillness that has been here all along, the peace of the present moment.